You are looking live right now. That is the Ed Sullivan Theater right here in New York City. That is home for now of David Letterman's Late Show. This is CNN Tonight. I'm Don Lemon. After 6,028 shows, 19,932 guests, 4,605 top 10 lists, not to mention 16 Emmys, Dave is wrapping up his incredible 33-year career. Tonight, I'm going to talk to the man who says we may not have seen the last of Letterman, a guy who's been on his show 150 times. His most frequent guest, none other than Regis Philbin. The stars, the surprises, and what one of his writers says about Dave's extraordinary 33 career. Just like his hero, Johnny Carson, David Letterman has changed American pop culture. The top 10 list is iconic. His show and his brand of comedy, well, they've inspired a generation of young comics now hosting late night shows. So let's discuss this now with Spike Feresten, one of Letterman's former writers, who is the host of Car Matchmaker on Esquire Network. Season 2 begins on June 24th. June 24th. I'll be watching. Also with me is Jeetendr Sehdev, a celebrity branding authority. He's an authority, by the way, and a professor of marketing at USC. Gentlemen, it's good to have you on tonight. Thank you for coming on and talking about Dave. So Spike,
nice to be here.
I'm going to start with you. You wrote for the Late Show. Everyone is showing up for Dave's late night show. Jerry Seinfeld, Alec Baldwin, Tina Fey, let's see, Jim Carrey, Steve Martin, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's some of the pictures there. It is really the end of an era. He meant a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, this is a big night for a lot of people. For me personally, this is the guy that got me into television. I was just a music student in Boston. I would come home, I would watch his show, and I could not believe what I was seeing night after night. And it just spoke to me like it spoke to a lot of folks from my generation and inspired so many different writers and comedians, because really it was this beacon of irreverent comedy that did not exist in the world at the time.
Yeah, and but how so? I remember watching, the 90s, where the guy who lived under the seats, and then he always wore double-breasted, and he was hipper and cooler. I mean, everybody loved Johnny, but he'd come on after, and he was hipper and cooler. All the cool kids watched Letterman.
Yeah, you could see things that you wouldn't see on a late night show or any kind of show. If you remember when Dave had to drill a hole in his desk to put the microphone wire through, he did it in real time without worrying at all about the countdown clock. Yeah. And you're just watching a guy drill a hole in a desk, and you're like, this is groundbreaking.
Yeah, I want to take a look at one of your favorites. This is one of your favorite moments on the show, and take a look at this.
Sure.
Our old friend Peggy, the foul-mouthed chambermaid. Here she is. Peggy, nice to see you.
You're so full of I just hope your falls off.
So you wrote that. Why? Why was Letterman and Peggy, the foul-mouthed chambermaid, such a game changer?
Well, first of all, that's Kathleen Ankers. I believe she worked down in the prop department. She had that wonderful British accent, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be just wonderful if she just came out onto the stage and started swearing at Dave? And what's groundbreaking about it is, up until that point, no one had walked onto a late-night set and said obscenities. Right in front of the audience. Usually, you weren't even allowed to say things like that in front of the studio audience, let alone the home audience. Yeah. But Dave gave the green light to it. We did it, and as you can hear, that's what the audience really reacting to there. Not just her obscenities, but the fact that they're actually hearing it during the course of a studio taping.
Yeah, and now you see it now, even with Kimmel. He has, his family members comes on. He's an aunt, I think. I forget her name. And she's foul-mouthed, and so a lot of people got, I guess imitation is best form of flattery. But Jeetendr, how did he keep it real for more than 6,000 late-night broadcasts?
I think that's the exact question. Authenticity does not go out of style even over 33 years. And really, David Letterman's key to success here was doing exactly that, to keeping it real. We saw the vulnerable David Letterman when his extramarital affair was kind of exposed. We saw the sensitive David Letterman after 9/11, and we saw how he was so visibly shaken. And essentially, that was David Letterman's key to success. Audiences were so relieved that he was not a TV personality, he was a real person. And I think that, that even today is resonating so much, even with the younger generation. So there's something that we can all learn from David Letterman in that sense.
It's interesting because I think that he and Johnny were similar. I mean, people, they had a lot of guesses about what Johnny was like in person. The same thing about David. They were both very private men, but once they got on stage, I mean, they just lit up. They were in their element, Jeetendr.
They absolutely were. I think that Johnny was certainly seen as being somebody who was a bit more of a persona versus actually being who he was. David Letterman was a conscience of America in many ways. He was asking the questions and he was saying the things that were on the audience's mind. So in that sense, he was the voice of America, and he was very brave and he was unabashed in that sense. So he did stand out from that perspective. When we look at his rankings from a genuineness and a sincerityness versus the likes of even the beloved Oprah, we see that he ranks much higher than the likes of Charlie Rose. He ranks higher than Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, we allowed David Letterman to get away with murder, and the reason why we did that was because we really got him, and he also got the audience.
Jeetendr, Spike, thank you very much. I appreciate you gentlemen joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.